My wife texted from Miami. Just wed my work partner. You're pathetic, by the way. I replied, understood, and made 3 calls that destroyed her life. She thought she was smart. She was wrong. This is how a 46-year-old businessman taught his cheating wife that some betrayals come with a price. My name is Francis Strickland. I'm 46 years old, and I own 3 Subway franchises in northern Texas. Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills, and then some. I've worked my tail off to build something real in this world, something I could be proud of. What I didn't realize was that while I was focused on building my business empire, my marriage was quietly falling apart. I met Nicole when I was 39. She was 35, working as a procurement manager for a regional hotel chain. Smart woman. Knew her way around corporate negotiations better than most men I'd dealt with. We met at a Chamber of Commerce mixer in Dallas. I wasn't looking for anything serious. Hell, I've been burned before in my 30s. But Nicole had this confidence about her that drew me in. She could hold her own in any conversation, whether we were talking business or just shooting the breeze about life. Our courtship moved fast. At our age, we both knew what we wanted. No point in playing games when you're pushing 40. Nicole had been married once before. Some finance guy who couldn't handle her ambition, she said. I'd had a long-term relationship that fizzled out when my ex decided she wanted kids, and I wasn't ready. But with Nicole, everything felt different. We were both established in our careers, financially stable, and ready to build something together. The wedding was small but nice. Nothing too fancy. We saved the money for a down payment on a house instead. That's the kind of practical thinking that made me believe we were a good match. Nicole understood that real wealth comes from smart decisions, not flashy displays. Those first few years were solid. We supported each other's careers, made joint financial decisions, and planned for the future like a real team. I was expanding my franchise operations, and Nicole was climbing the corporate ladder at her hotel company. We traveled together when we could, hosted dinner parties for our friends, and talked about maybe starting a family once things settled down a bit more. But that family thing, that's where the trouble started brewing, though I didn't recognize it at the time. The baby thing started innocent enough. Nicole and I figured we had time. We were both healthy, successful, and finally in a position where we could afford to give a kid everything they needed. Hell, at 35 and 39, we thought we were being smart by waiting until we were financially secure. Turns out, biology doesn't care much about your business plan. Month after month, nothing. Nicole started tracking everything: temperature, cycles, ovulation windows. Our bedroom turned into a medical laboratory. What used to be spontaneous became scheduled. Romance got replaced by reproductive science. Tonight's the night, Nicole would announce, checking her phone app like she was coordinating a business meeting. After a year of trying naturally, we moved to the expensive stuff. Fertility specialists in Dallas don't come cheap, especially when your insurance treats it like elective surgery. IVF rounds cost us $15,000 a pop. We did 3 cycles over 18 months. Each time, Nicole would get her hopes up, start planning nursery colors, even bought baby clothes once. Then came the phone calls from the clinic with test results that crushed those dreams. The financial strain was one thing. I could handle dropping $50,000 on medical procedures. What I couldn't handle was watching my wife disappear a little more after each failed attempt. Nicole started working longer hours, taking on bigger procurement projects that required more travel. When I asked her about it, she'd say she needed the distraction. I can't just sit around thinking about what's not happening, Nicole told me after our 3rd failed IVF. At least work makes sense. I can control outcomes there. That's when I realized we'd stopped talking about anything except fertility treatments and work. We used to discuss everything: my franchise expansion plans, her career goals, weekend trips we wanted to take. Now our conversations centered around medical appointments and Nicole's latest business trip to some hotel conference. I try to suggest we take a break from trying, maybe focus on us for a while. Bad move. Nicole looked at me like I'd suggested we burn down the house. Easy for you to say, she snapped. You're not the one whose body is failing. You're not the one running out of time. That hit me harder than I expected. At 42, I still felt like I had plenty of good years ahead. But Nicole was staring down 40 with no kids and a medical file full of failed attempts. I started to understand the pressure she felt, but I didn't know how to help. So I did what I thought was right. I threw money at the problem. I took over all the household expenses, told Nicole to quit worrying about bills and focus on her health. I figured if she wasn't stressed about money, maybe her body would relax enough to let nature take its course. For a few months, it seemed to work. Nicole came home earlier, seemed more present during dinner conversations. We even went on a weekend trip to San Antonio without talking about ovulation schedules once. But then something shifted again, and this time it felt different. Nicole's work schedule started getting weird around our 6th year of marriage. As someone who's run multiple businesses, I know what normal corporate travel looks like. But Nicole's trips were becoming more frequent and lasting longer than anything I'd seen in the hospitality industry. Regional Procurement Summit in Atlanta, she'd announce, packing for 4 days. Vendor negotiations in Phoenix, she'd say the following month, gone for nearly a week. Every few weeks, there was another conference, another training session, another critical meeting that couldn't be handled remotely. Now, I've dealt with hotel chains through my restaurant business. I know how these companies operate. They're tight with expenses, especially when it comes to travel. Yet according to Nicole, her company was constantly sending her to high-end events in expensive cities. Something didn't add up. Seems like your company really values employee development, I mentioned one evening as she packed for yet another trip. Nicole looked up from her suitcase with irritation in her eyes. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing hostile, honey. It's just unusual for a regional hotel chain to invest this much in travel. Most companies I work with handle these things through video conferences now. Well, maybe your restaurant suppliers aren't as sophisticated as hospitality procurement. Nicole shot back. This is how serious businesses operate. That stung, but I let it slide. I'd learned that questioning Nicole's work led to arguments I didn't want to have. Still, my gut told me something was off. I'd been in business long enough to recognize when stories don't match reality. The weird part was how Nicole's behavior changed after these trips. She'd come home energized in a way I hadn't seen in years. More talkative, more affectionate, almost like she was trying to overcompensate for something. Then, within a week, she'd settle back in her distant routine. I tried to reconnect with her during these brief windows when she seemed more like her old self. I'd suggest date nights, weekend getaways, anything to rebuild what we'd lost. But Nicole always had an excuse. I'm exhausted from travel, she'd say. Or, I need to catch up on work from being gone. The woman who used to love spontaneous adventures suddenly couldn't find time for a dinner and movie. Meanwhile, I was busting my tail to give us the financial freedom to enjoy life together. My 3 Subway locations were generating solid profit, and I'd been eyeing opportunities to expand. But instead of sharing that excitement with Nicole, I found myself managing the business alone while wondering where my wife's head was. The breaking point came when I suggested we use some of our savings for a 2-week vacation to Europe, something we talked about since our early marriage. I can't take that much time off, Nicole said without even looking up from her laptop. I've got 3 major projects coming up that require extensive travel. More travel? I asked. Nicole, you've been gone more nights than you've been home this quarter. Her response floored me. That's what it takes to advance in this industry, Francis. Some of us have ambitions beyond running sandwich shops. After Nicole's comment about my sandwich shops, something fundamental shifted between us. I'd spent 7 years building a business that provided us with a comfortable lifestyle, and she just dismissed it like I was flipping burgers at McDonald's. That level of disrespect told me we had bigger problems than I'd realized. Our conversations became tactical exchanges rather than genuine communication. Every interaction felt like I was walking through a minefield, never knowing what innocent comment might trigger an explosion. Nicole seemed determined to find fault with everything I said or did. Did you remember to call the pest control company? She'd ask in a tone that suggested she already knew I'd forgotten. Already handled it Tuesday. I'd respond, trying to keep my voice level. Well, they need to come back. I saw ants in the kitchen this morning. I'll call them again tomorrow. You shouldn't have to call them again if you'd communicated properly the first time. This was our new normal. Nicole turning routine household management into opportunities to demonstrate my inadequacy. I started documenting conversations in my head, making sure I could defend every decision and action. When I suggested we try marriage counseling, Nicole's reaction was swift and brutal. What exactly do you think a therapist is going to tell us that we don't already know? She said. That we want different things. That we're not compatible anymore. I could save us the copay and tell you that right now. So you're saying we're not compatible? I'm saying maybe we got married for the wrong reasons. Maybe we thought we wanted the same things, but we don't. That conversation happened on a Tuesday evening in our kitchen. Nicole was standing by the counter, arms crossed, looking at me like I was a problem to be solved rather than her husband of 7 years. The woman I'd married, the one who used to laugh at my stupid jokes and get excited about my business plans, had been replaced by someone who seemed to barely tolerate my existence. I made one last attempt to bridge the gap between us. Nicole, we're both successful people. We built something good here. Can't we figure out how to reconnect? Her response cut deeper than I expected. Maybe the problem is that you think running a few franchise restaurants makes you successful. Some of us have bigger goals than small-town thinking. I stood there in my own kitchen, listening to my wife tear down everything I'd worked for, and realized I was done trying to win back someone who clearly didn't want to be won. That night, Nicole slept in the guest bedroom. She'd done it before after arguments, but this time felt different. Permanent. From that point forward, our marriage existed on paper only. We shared a house, but we'd stopped sharing a life. 3 weeks after our kitchen confrontation, Nicole announced her biggest travel opportunity yet. Her company was sending her to a week-long hospitality summit in Miami, Thursday through the following Wednesday. 6 days in South Beach for what she described as the most important procurement conference of the year. This could really accelerate my career, Nicole said, already researching hotels on her laptop. The keynote speakers include executives from Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt. It's exactly the kind of networking I need. I nodded and made appropriate supportive husband noises, but my lie detector was screaming. In my 15 years of business experience, I'd never heard of a company sending one employee to a week-long conference that cost thousands in travel expenses, especially not a regional hotel chain that Nicole had previously described as budget-conscious. Sounds like a great opportunity, I said carefully. Who else from your company is attending? Nicole's pause lasted just a beat too long. It's limited to senior procurement managers. Most companies only send one representative. Makes sense, I replied, though it didn't make sense at all. Companies don't invest that kind of money in individual employee development unless there's a specific business need. But questioning Nicole had become pointless. Every inquiry led to accusations that I didn't understand her industry. The week before her departure, Nicole's behavior shifted dramatically. She became almost aggressively affectionate, cooking my favorite meals, initiating conversations about my restaurant expansion plans, even suggesting we watch movies together. It felt forced, like she was checking boxes on some guilt management checklist. I'm going to miss you while I'm gone, she said Tuesday night, which struck me as odd since she'd never expressed such sentiments before previous trips. Wednesday evening, as Nicole packed for Miami, I made one last attempt at connection. You know what? Maybe after this conference, we could plan that Europe trip we used to talk about. Use some of the profits from the restaurants to really reconnect. Nicole's response was immediate and harsh. Francis, I need you to understand something. I'm in this marriage because I choose to be, but you're pushing me toward decisions I don't want to make. Keep questioning my career and my choices, and I'll end this marriage and take half of everything you've built. The threat hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't anger or frustration. This was calculated intimidation. Nicole was essentially telling me to shut up and fund her lifestyle without asking questions, or she'd destroy me financially in divorce court. I stood there in our bedroom, watching my wife fold clothes for her Miami trip, and realized she just revealed exactly how she viewed our marriage. I was a financial resource to be managed, not a partner to be respected. Thursday morning, Nicole left for the airport with 2 large suitcases and a cheerful goodbye that felt like performance art. As her Uber pulled away, I experienced something I hadn't felt in months, genuine peace in my own home. But I still didn't understand how wrong I was about everything. Thursday and Friday passed quietly. I caught up on restaurant paperwork, had dinner with my business partner Mike, and actually enjoyed the solitude. For the first time in months, I wasn't walking on eggshells in my own house. Saturday, I played golf with some buddies and grabbed beers afterward. Normal guy stuff that had become rare since Nicole's mood swing started. Sunday evening, I was watching the Cowboys game when my phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. I figured she was updating me on conference activities or complaining about Miami traffic. Instead, I opened a message that stopped my world cold. The text contained a photo of Nicole standing next to some guy I'd never seen before. They were both grinning in front of what was clearly a courthouse or government building. The guy had his arm around Nicole's waist, and she was holding up her left hand, showing off what looked like a new ring. Below the photo, Nicole had written, "Just wed my work partner. You're pathetic, by the way, for not even calling to check on me during this conference." I stared at my phone screen for what felt like an hour, but was probably 30 seconds. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. My wife had apparently gotten married to someone else while supposedly attending a business conference. The casual cruelty of calling me pathetic for not checking on her while she was betraying our marriage was almost more shocking than the marriage itself. But here's the thing about being 46 years old and running successful businesses. You learn not to make emotional decisions when you're angry. Instead of calling Nicole to scream at her or demand explanations, I took a screenshot of the message and texted back one word, "Understood." Then I called the one person I knew could help me navigate this mess legally and strategically, my college buddy Jake Morrison, who'd built one of the most respected family law practices in Dallas. Jake had handled my business and corporation paperwork years earlier, and I trusted his judgment completely. "Jake, it's Francis. I need legal advice, and I need it tonight." "What's going on?" "My wife just texted me a photo of her wedding to another man from Miami. I need to know what my options are." Jake's response was immediate and professional. "Forward me everything you have. Don't communicate with her further until we talk. Can you meet me at my office in an hour?" That phone call probably saved me from making decisions I'd regret later. Instead of reacting emotionally to Nicole's betrayal, I was about to respond strategically. At 46, I'd learned that the best revenge against people who try to destroy you is protecting yourself so completely that their attacks become irrelevant. By midnight, I knew exactly what needed to happen next. Jake's office at midnight felt like a war room. He'd ordered Chinese takeout, brewed a pot of coffee, and spread my financial documents across his conference table. For the next 3 hours, we built a strategy that would protect everything I'd worked for while responding to Nicole's betrayal. First priority is asset protection, Jake explained, reviewing my business and corporation papers. "Your restaurants are properly structured as LLCs, so they're largely protected. But we need to secure your personal accounts immediately." Jake walked me through the legal realities. Since my name was the only one on the restaurant businesses in our house deed, Nicole had limited claims to my core assets. But our joint accounts and credit cards were vulnerable to vindictive spending sprees. "Here's what we're going to do," Jake said, pulling out his laptop. "Tomorrow morning, you're going to freeze every joint account and cancel every shared credit card. Texas law allows this when there's evidence of marital misconduct. What about her getting stranded in Miami? Francis, she just married another man while using your money to fund the trip. Her transportation arrangements are no longer your responsibility." Jake had a point. Nicole had used our joint credit card to book her Miami conference trip, where she'd apparently planned her wedding to someone else. The audacity was staggering, but it also provided legal justification for my response. By 3 a.m., we'd scheduled a locksmith for Monday morning and identified a private investigator who could verify the marriage in Miami. Jake also recommended documenting everything: Nicole's threatening text about taking half my assets, her escalating travel expenses, and the suspicious pattern of business conferences. "One more thing," Jake said as we wrapped up. "Don't let her manipulate you when she realizes what's happening. Women like Nicole are experts at emotional warfare. Stay focused on facts and legal strategy." Monday morning, I executed the plan with military precision. First call went to our bank, freezing the joint account and removing Nicole's access to our credit cards. The customer service representative was surprisingly accommodating once I explained the situation and provided Jake's contact information. Second call went to Martinez Locksmith Services. They could be at my house by 10 a.m. to rekey all the exterior locks. Texas property law was clear. Since my name was solely on the deed, I had the right to control access to the house. By noon, Nicole's financial support system had been completely dismantled. Her credit cards would decline at checkout. Her bank account access was frozen. And if she somehow made it back to Dallas, she'd find herself locked out of what she'd apparently thought was her guaranteed half of my assets. The waiting began. Nicole was scheduled to return Wednesday evening, assuming she could figure out how to pay for her return flight. Wednesday afternoon, my phone started buzzing with missed calls from Nicole. I didn't answer. Jake had been clear. No communication until she was back in Dallas, and we could control the conversation. Every call that went to voicemail strengthened our legal position. Around 4 p.m., Nicole apparently discovered her financial situation. My phone exploded with text messages that I screenshot for evidence. "Francis, my cards aren't working. Call me immediately. This is ridiculous. I'm stuck at Miami airport with no money. You're being childish. Fix this now, or you'll regret it. I'm calling a lawyer. You can't abandon your wife like this." Each message revealed Nicole's mindset perfectly. Even after sending me photos of her marriage to another man, she expected me to fund her return home and maintain her lifestyle. The entitlement was breathtaking. By 6 p.m., Nicole had apparently found alternative transportation. My doorbell rang at 8:30 that evening, followed immediately by pounding on the front door. I looked through the peephole to see Nicole standing on my porch with 2 suitcases, clearly agitated. "Francis, open this door right now," she shouted. "I live here." I didn't respond. Instead, I called 911 and explained the situation calmly. My wife left for Miami last week and sent me photos of her marriage to another man. I've changed the locks for my personal security. She's now demanding entry to my house, which is solely in my name. The dispatcher was professional and understanding. 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes and found Nicole still pounding on my door, now shouting threats about lawyers and divorce settlements. When I finally opened the door with the officers present, Nicole's fury was spectacular. "This is my house too," she screamed. "You can't lock me out." Officer Martinez looked at me calmly. "Sir, can you provide documentation showing ownership of this property?" I handed him the deed, which clearly showed my name as sole owner. I also provided the marriage certificate and Jake's business card. "Ma'am," Officer Martinez addressed Nicole, "this appears to be a civil matter. The property owner has the right to control access. You'll need to resolve this through the courts." "This is insane," Nicole shouted. "We're married. That photo was a joke. We were drunk." I remained silent, letting Nicole's explanations speak for themselves. The officers exchanged glances that suggested they'd heard similar stories before. "Sir, do you want to press charges for trespassing?" Officer Martinez asked. "Not at this time," I replied. "I just want her to leave so I can get some sleep." Nicole's face went through several expressions: rage, disbelief, and finally something resembling panic. She was beginning to understand that her actions had consequences she hadn't anticipated. "Francis, we need to talk about this rationally," she said, suddenly trying to sound reasonable. "My attorney will contact yours," I replied, closing the door. Through the peephole, I watched Nicole stand on my porch for another 10 minutes before finally calling an Uber. As her car disappeared down the street, I realized I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete control over my own life. Thursday morning brought Nicole's legal counterattack. Her attorney, some hotshot divorce specialist named Patricia Walsh, filed emergency motions demanding spousal support and temporary housing allowances. Nicole was claiming financial abandonment and seeking immediate access to my business accounts. Jake's response was swift and devastating. We counterfiled with evidence of Nicole's bigamy, complete with the Miami courthouse photos she'd helpfully provided. Jake had also hired a private investigator who confirmed that Nicole's work partner was indeed already married to someone else in California. This just became a criminal matter, Jake explained during our strategy meeting. Bigamy is a felony in Florida, Texas, and California. We're not just talking divorce anymore. We're looking at potential federal charges. The private investigator's report was thorough. Nicole's supposed business conferences had been fabricated. Her company confirmed they'd never sent her to any of the locations she'd claimed to visit. The Miami trip, along with at least 6 previous work trips, had been entirely personal vacations funded by our joint accounts. But the real bombshell came when Jake contacted the Miami-Dade County Clerk's office. Nicole's marriage to Derek Castellanos was completely legal and properly recorded. More importantly, Derek was currently married to a woman named Maria Castellanos in Los Angeles, making him guilty of bigamy as well. "We're forwarding everything to the district attorney's office," Jake informed me. "Both Nicole and Derek are looking at felony charges. This isn't going away with apologies and counseling." Nicole's attorney tried negotiating a settlement, but Jake's position was non-negotiable. Nicole had committed fraud by using marital funds to conduct an illegal marriage while threatening to take half my assets. The criminal charges would proceed regardless of any civil settlement. 2 weeks later, both Nicole and Derek were arrested on felony bigamy charges. The media coverage was brutal. Local hotel managers' illegal Vegas-style marriage scam made the Dallas Business Journal. Nicole's employer terminated her immediately, citing moral turpitude clauses in her employment contract. Meanwhile, my franchise businesses continued thriving. My attorney had protected my assets so thoroughly that the divorce proceedings became a formality. Nicole had no claim to businesses she'd never contributed to, and her criminal conviction eliminated any sympathy from the family court judge. The final hearing lasted 30 minutes. Judge Harrison granted me a complete divorce with no financial obligations to Nicole. Her threats about taking half my assets became laughable once her felony conviction was entered into the record. "Mr. Strickland," Judge Harrison said, "your ex-wife's conduct represents a clear pattern of deception and financial fraud. This court finds no basis for spousal support or property division, given the criminal nature of her actions." Nicole sat silently beside her attorney, finally understanding that consequences existed for people who thought they could manipulate and threaten their way through life. Justice had been served, and it tasted exactly as sweet as I'd hoped. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I stood in my newly renovated kitchen, cooking dinner for myself, and actually enjoying the solitude. The house felt different now, lighter, more peaceful, completely mine. Nicole's threats and manipulation tactics seemed like memories from someone else's life. The criminal case against Nicole and Derek had concluded with plea bargains. Nicole received 2 years probation, a $15,000 fine, and 200 hours of community service. Her felony record would follow her forever, making employment and hospitality management virtually impossible. Derek faced similar consequences in California, plus his wife Maria had filed for divorce and was seeking damages for fraud. My restaurant business had expanded significantly during the chaos. Without Nicole's constant criticism and financial demands, I've been able to focus completely on growth opportunities. I'd opened 2 additional Subway locations and was negotiating franchise agreements for 3 more. The stress of a toxic marriage had been replaced by the satisfaction of building something meaningful. The personal transformation was even more significant. At 46, I'd learned valuable lessons about recognizing manipulation and protecting myself from people who view relationships as financial opportunities rather than partnerships. Nicole's betrayal had hurt initially, but it had also freed me from years of walking on eggshells around someone who'd never respected what I'd built. My social life had improved dramatically. Without Nicole's disapproval hanging over every decision, I'd reconnected with old friends and business contacts. Mike, my business partner, had introduced me to his sister-in-law Sandra, a nurse practitioner who appreciated straightforward men who didn't play games. We've been dating for 3 months, taking things slow and enjoying honest communication. "You seem more relaxed than I've ever seen you," Sandra told me over dinner last week. "Like you're finally comfortable in your own skin." She was right. Nicole's constant criticism had made me second-guess every decision, every opinion, every aspect of my personality. Now I remembered what it felt like to be confident in my own judgment and comfortable with my achievements. The financial outcome had exceeded even Jake's predictions. Without Nicole's spending and travel expenses, my personal savings had increased substantially. The house was completely paid off, my business expansion was funded through cash flow rather than loans, and I had enough invested to retire comfortably if I chose to. Looking back, Nicole's Miami stunt was the best thing that could have happened to me. Her betrayal had given me the legal ammunition to end our marriage cleanly while protecting everything I'd worked for. Instead of years of counseling, arguments, and gradual financial bleeding, I'd gotten a swift, decisive resolution that left me stronger than before. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best outcomes. Nicole had tried to destroy me and ended up destroying only herself. Meanwhile, I was free, financially secure, and building genuine relationships with people who valued honesty and mutual respect. At 46, I finally understood what a real partnership should look like, and I wasn't settling for anything less ever again.